All right, guys, welcome back. We're gonna be going over point of interest, also known as area of interest, and what I use to identify my POI. So I use order blocks, breaker blocks, rejection blocks, and unmitigated wicks. All right, order blocks, breaker blocks, rejection blocks, unmitigated wicks. Right. The way that we use order blocks, or that we are going to use order blocks, is this way. Turn it off for you. We know that the order block is the last up candle before the down move and the last down candle before the up move. For example, here. Should I change color on this? All right, the last up move before the down move. All right, the regular order block, the way it's understood is price would come into and tap it, right? But for us to be a valid OB, it must take out liquidity. It must take out liquidity. It must have a purpose. The OB must have a purpose. It should take out liquidity in order for it to be a valid order block for us. If not, it won't be a valid OB for us. All right. And that goes on both sides, vice versa. Now, all right. What's a breaker block? A breaker block is simply a order block that was not respected and that it was violated. So let me give you a quick example here. All right. Let's say we were supposed to have an order block right here. And price should go up because that is the last sell candle before the up move. Right? So price was supposed to tap and go. But if the order block does not hold and it breaks straight through, that becomes the breaker. That would be known as a breaker block. It's an order block that did not hold, that was validated. Just flip it. It becomes the breaker. And the same thing vice versa. What is a rejection block? A rejection block is simply a candle with a long wick. That's one example. It can also look like this. It can also look like this. Just like that. It's rejecting from both sides. Here from the bottom, long wick. This is what a rejection block looks like. It is small body, long wick, and there is times that we get somewhat long body and a long wick like that. That's also a rejection block, also known as a FU candle. If you know what FU candle is, then that's what a rejection block is. The rejection block should also take out liquidity. That's the only way the rejection block will be valid for us, is if it takes out liquidity. Okay. So that's rejection block. Now, unmitigated wick. An unmitigated wick is going to be in a normal candle, right? And it's going to be just the wick. The wick was not mitigated by any other wick. It never was. So it'll look something like this. Price would just create the inducement, tap into the unmitigated wick and then go just like that, right? The candle can look like that. Like a wick like that. Create the inducement, tap into the unmitigated wick, and then drop. Just like that, right? That is an unmitigated wick, right? Now, does this wick need to take out liquidity, right? It doesn't have to, but I will prefer it to take out liquidity. I've seen it play out. If it doesn't take out liquidity, I see it play out good. It respects nicely. But when it does take out liquidity, it's even better. So Again, you got to combine everything together, but to put it in short terms, let's say, it doesn't have to take out liquidity. It doesn't need to. Okay, so no, it doesn't need to, but I will prefer it to take out liquidity, but it does not need to. As an unmitigated wick, it happens on a regular candle, most likely on a higher time frame candle. Okay. So now let's put these in some examples. So we have a strong low, then we have a weak high. All right, let's say we got an order block right here. All right, and then price is gonna come back and tap into it like that. But that's not how we are gonna take the order block. Remember, it must take out liquidity, which it did right here. And there must be liquidity formed underneath the POI. Remember, all of this is simply a point of interest. All of these are point of interest. There must be liquidity fed into the POI. So once liquidity is being fed into this, then this becomes valid. Only then it will become valid. Right? So whether it's internal liquidity or inducement, there has to be either or in order to make this a valid POI. So when we have a point of interest, there must be liquidity present in order to make it valid. If there's no liquidity, it's not a valid point of interest. So the same thing, vice versa. There must be liquidity to make this point of interest valid. If not, it's not a valid POI for us. Now I need to understand this. When there's a point of interest, right here, and price is coming down, and there's no internal liquidity. There's no internal liquidity at all, right? When price is coming down, you have to see how price is approaching its POI. Because if it's just coming in like this, it's not going to be a valid POI. So you have to see how price is being delivered and how price is coming into that point of interest. So if price is doing this, and there's a high right here, let's say, if it failed to take out this high, that becomes weak. That is feeding liquidity into this. So it gave it a reason to drop into this point of interest. All right, so you have to see how price being delivered. For example, is price coming down this? There's a trend on liquidity being built just above the POI. So if we don't see no inducement, no clear inducement, no internal liquidity, you have to see how price being delivered. All right, see what happens, see what it does. All right. So now, get some more details here. So when price broke structure here, right, we need to identify which is going to be the valid POI, and where we know that this is a order block, right? The take out liquidity, so this is obviously valid for us, right? But inside of this order block, there's going to be small order blocks, or not small order blocks, but small candles like that, right? And of course, there will be some order blocks inside the candle, right? There's going to be small candles, maybe imbalance and all that. So which candle are you going to choose, right, for price to react from? anticipating that we're looking for a entry here and not just a zone to wait for price to react, right? So which candle are we going to use? Now listen closely. We're going to use the block or the candle that is lining up with the higher time frame POI. So what do I mean by that? So if this is an order block is a price level, right? So this red line, if there is, let's say in here, a breaker block right in there, if there's a breaker block in there, right? If there's a breaker block in there, let's say, and it lines up with the higher time frame, price level, key level, right? Either or. If it lines up with the higher time frame, key level, that's the one that you're going to use. That will be your refinement. Okay, that will be your refinement. Let's keep going because there's still a lot more to cover. So inside of a higher time frame order block, okay, inside of a higher time frame order block, there's going to be a breaker block. Inside of a higher time frame order block, there's going to be a breaker block. A breaker block. Okay. Most of the time. Okay, not 100%, I would say 90% of the time you'll see it. If it's not the 1 minute, probably in seconds. But there's going to be a breaker block inside of a higher time frame order block. Write that down. All right. So let's say we have an order block right here, right? And then we draw a line on, let's say, the body. And let's say that we want to enter right here, right? And we don't want to wait for confirmation. Now we're not covering entries, not yet, but I just want to show you. Let's say we have inducement right there. So I want to take the trade right here once it taps into here.